Okay. Um,
Here we are.
Here we are. Monaco.
The aftermath of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yes.
Once again, I am dressed nicely.
That
For Red
means
Bull's
it's
downfall.
a special occasion.
You know? It is what it is. I mean, is this the best season ever? Maybe.
Well, it could be.
Maybe.
It could be.
Charles Leclerc won the Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah, you're just getting right into it. You don't care.
What a day.
Spoilers.
Got to start with it. What a day.
Spoilers.
The curse, quote unquote, is broken.
Yes.
Never believed in it.
Yes. Yes. For those of you that don't know, Charles Leclerc has gotten pole position a few times at Monaco and yet has managed to lose the race, which is pretty rare at this track.
He's never won that race, ever,
never
even in
run.
F2.
He's crashed out multiple times. He even did a historic F1 race there where his brakes exploded last year and he crashed out of the race. That was not his fault.
Not
But
his fault.
still, he has gotten tremendously unlucky around Monaco the previous years.
Yep.
Um,
DNFs, DNSs, which is did not start. He got pole position one year, and then he had crashed his car in qualifying, and it broke a drive shaft. But
Yeah.
they didn't know until he went for his parade or his formation lap, and the car shut down basically and wouldn't drive.
yeah.
All that bad luck came to an end on Sunday. And as a Ferrari fan, I couldn't be happier. And a Leclerc fan, I couldn't be happier either.
I'm thrilled. And honestly, after this race as well, you look at the standings, and Ferrari is not that far off. Leclerc's not that far off in the driver's standings. He's not that, Ferrari's not that far off in constructors either.
Yep. I'm not believing the hype. People are saying that Ferrari is closer now than they were in 2022.
I disagree with that.
I disagree with it too. But it's
Ferrari's
looking exciting.
Yeah, they're making improvements. 2022, they legitimately had the fastest car.
Yeah.
They had the fastest car. Maybe not for tire degradation, but certainly they had the quickest car over one lap by a long shot.
Yeah.
And Ferrari just bungled it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But here we are in 2024 where they're not bungling anything.
Not yet.
What a change.
Fred Vasseur.
Yes, my boy Fred.
Fred.
My
Freddie.
man Fred.
Speaking of team principals,
Yes.
I did not know Alpine had a team principal.
Neither did I. Do you want to get into why? Do you want to get into why we both know that Alpine has a team principal now?
Well, all of a sudden, this team principal is making waves saying that he wants to remove Ocon for the Canadian Grand Prix.
Which would be awesome.
That would be
I'm putting my neck on the line. I'm usually pretty careful with some of my opinions. Never been an Ocon fan.
No.
Nothing against him personally, but I don't appreciate his driving. Did you know he actually crashed into Pierre Gasly, again, spoiler alert, twice on the first lap? Did you know that?
I only knew the one time
Yeah,
where
no, he bumped him. He bumped him first,
Ooh.
right after the Sergio Perez incident location. So you know when it curves to the left? After you go up the hill, it curves to the left?
Yep.
He bumped into Pierre Gasly there.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
And then launched in front of him and pushed him into the wall. But
Interesting.
we shouldn't get out of form.
Yeah,
we shouldn't get out of
we're
form.
getting very far ahead of ourselves, aren't we?
Sorry, guys.
Very far ahead of
And by
ourselves.
sorry, I
This is
mean
so
I'm not
exciting.
sorry.
Because we do have.
am pulling up the mail,
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
and I'm not going to
This guy
open
doesn't
any
even have it
links.
on his app.
No.
This guy, he's pulling it up on his
Dude,
browser on
I
his
have
phone.
too many. I have too many
It's in a
emails.
separate inbox, dude. You just go to the Green Guys inbox.
I don't use the Gmail app. I'm not a peasant.
What? You're using
I
it in
use
the
the mail app.
browser.
I use the mail app. No.
You use the default
No.
mail app?
No.
Holy crap.
Shut up. iPhones is better. iPhone's mail app is way better. Don't even come at me right now.
That's crazy.
Anyways, now I'm confused.
Well.
Can I start with the first one?
You can
The
start with the
oldest one?
first one. Yeah, I'll read the second one.
This one from the Superfan.
Yes.
The subject line of our first email from the Superfan is Monaco not really a race.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Goes as follows. I know that the one host is going nuts and would have jumped into the sea right alongside Leclerc. Is that you?
It's me.
It is also me. So wrong. Both hosts would have jumped into the sea right beside Leclerc.
I mean, it looked like a nice day out.
It looked gorgeous.
Water looked nice.
Except then, like, they were Fred and Leclerc were the only two who went in. So wouldn't it be weird if you're just like a random intern and you jumped in?
I feel like Fred is like 70 years old and shouldn't be doing anything he does ever.
Yeah.
And I'm
sure.
concerned he's going to kill himself by accident.
No. He's French. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
You ever heard of a Frenchman killing themselves?
No.
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 They just surrender. Right?
I
That's a
can't
good
wait
little
for
French
Ferrari
joke.
to do that this year.
Surrender?
Yeah.
I can wait. But was that, back to the email, but was that really a race? Basically, it was the top 10 driving around a street for an afternoon drive. No passing, no excitement. Wrong. There were at least 3 passes, 2 of which were made by by Lance Stroll.
Ooh. Yeah,
By Lance Stroll.
Lance, yep.
Decisive, good passes as well.
Yes.
And one was made by Logan Sargent. So
Yes.
North America was looking pretty strong in the passing game.
It would appear that North Americans are the best around Monaco circuit.
For passing.
Well, I didn't see any of the other top
I
drivers
didn't see any
passing
of the
anybody.
Europeans
And
passing anybody.
give Lance a Ferrari, he would have passed the entire grid there. Wow.
Perhaps. As Max was quoted, I just tried to follow George and we were so off the pace trying to manage the tires. That is, of course, quite boring out there, driving literally half throttle on the straights in some places, a gear higher than you would normally do, and 4 seconds off the pace. So that is not really racing. There has to be a way to make this race more exciting.
Yeah. Well,
We have an idea about that.
we do have an idea about that. We're in unanimous agreement
Yep.
on this topic.
We are.
Smaller cars.
Yep.
It's the only way.
It is the only way.
It's the only way. They used to be smaller. They've gotten quite large.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the new regulations are supposed to make them smaller again.
I do believe so, but I don't know how much smaller.
I don't know if it's dramatically smaller,
Because
but it's smaller.
A 2022 F1 car is essentially as long as a pickup truck. And when you really think about
massive.
that, that's outrageous.
It's massive.
It's a pickup truck size.
We've seen like the prototype of one of them in person at the car show in Toronto.
Yeah.
And like even the tires on them, you just don't even realize how big they
It's
are.
huge.
It's massive.
It's
Massive.
huge. And to a degree, I understand, like, the floor is the downforce portion. So if you make the car smaller, you get less downforce, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
No, they need to be smaller.
They do.
If you want Monaco to be an exciting race again, they need to be smaller.
They need to be smaller. I heard a fantastic, and I won't take credit for this, but I love this idea. One of the best ideas I've ever heard.
Yep.
F1 should race F2 cars at Monaco.
Interesting. All the F1 drivers hop into F2 cars for
Yeah.
just that race.
Can you tell me why that would actually be a bad thing?
I mean, it takes away the constructor element a little bit, but like
Does it? What if they got to engineer an F2 car?
just for that one race, do they get like a special budget for Monaco?
Yeah, sure. That could be something.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
You'd basically have an F2 car for one weekend.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that work? Why wouldn't that be exciting?
Yeah, well, shiver me timbers. I don't know.
That's a pretty good idea, isn't it?
I think
That would be exhilarating.
you know how they should change Monaco?
How?
Special event on Saturday.
Okay. Sprint race, as in on foot.
No. No sprint race. No sprint race. What does Monaco have an abundance of?
Water,
Yes. What is in that water?
salt,
Yes. What is on top of that water? / slightly inside of it.
tanned rich people.
That is also correct. What do those tanned rich people love to sit on?
Ornate fabrics?
Also true.
Are you saying that they should carpet race
Carpet.
around the streets of Monaco?
Fine
They should carpet shuffle, where you have to like hold up the end like you're trying to stand on a crazy carpet and just shuffle through the streets of Monaco.
We should do something similar to your F2 idea.
Yeah.
But for Monaco,
Mm-hmm.
each team has to develop a boat.
I knew that's what you were doing.
And they
the whole time.
race speedboats
Yeah.
in Monaco on Saturday.
Speedboats are like, what if we went a completely different direction, where it was like it's hovercraft. It was like soapbox racing. So it was like a soapbox derby boat.
It's like the kind of Red Bull soapbox derby challenges, but it's F1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly like
fun.
that.
Yeah. Or alternatively,
I like this idea.
Planes. Each driver has to get their pilot license, and they fly small single-seater planes.
And it's a time trial.
No, they're all flying at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Through set checkpoints.
Ocon and Gasly would be dead. We would have 2 funerals today.
Some really good ejector seats.
Actually, there would be 5. There would be 5 funerals. We would be reeling from the wake of 5 deaths.
They're the best ejector seats you've ever seen.
They would just eject into each other.
No. Like, it's a AI computer.
It's a Doodle AI. Great. Awesome. It's a Reddit trained AI ejector seat.
You eject and another plane's coming right where you ejected, right?
And then
the
AI
on
goes,
the seat.
Actually, I thought it would be a good idea to hit the other plane. My Reddit training told me that I should hit the other plane.
It's going to eject you straight up, and then thrusters on the side of the seat will push you out of the way of the other planes.
I have a better idea. Jetpack racing.
Oh, they could do that. Remember, wasn't there a race where they had a guy in a jetpack and then he kind of like fell over?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
which race was
that? The Hungarian Grand Prix?
It might have been. I can't remember. But they had a guy like fly in on a jetpack
and then they cut to Oscar Piastri and he did a hilarious reaction.
Yes, he's quite the comedian, that guy.
He is funny.
Okay. The one thing that was funny this weekend was the
Leclerc adoption thing.
Yeah, the Leclerc adoption thing.
It was so funny.
So for free practice, when they announced the results, they made Oscar Piastri, who's a driver for McLaren, they made his name Oscar Piastri and then hyphen Leclerc because there was a joke about Charles Leclerc, a driver for Ferrari, adopting Oscar Piastri.
And it was extra funny. You might have not have known this. But basically all year, Oscar Piastri has been claiming that every race is his home race, which is hilarious. And then he will come up with a mystery fraction of how he is, I think like he was 1/100th Chinese, so it was his home Grand Prix.
Fair enough.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Hilarious.
All right.
That's where this came from. Is he said, "I'm trying to find my monogasque roots," and then Leclerc said, "I can adopt you."
Yes.
It was very funny. Oscar Piastri is funny, but alas, the size of the cars. Back to the email. The size of the cars are the problem.
It's the problem, yeah.
You need to be able to pass in more than one place.
Yeah. Do I think it was technically a race? Yes.
Yes.
Was it a race where everybody was driving deliberately very slowly
it was
so that
4 seconds.
Nobody could pass each other?
It was 4 seconds off the qualifying pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into some of the results later, but there's some pretty dramatic differentials in pace and speed.
Certainly.
And there were a few special circumstances that made it so that everybody was driving particularly slowly this time.
Do you want to hit the next email?
I will indeed.
The
next email is technically just a link to an article.
Wait, we said we wouldn't follow links.
I haven't opened the link.
Okay.
No link has been opened,
right,
but
good.
I know what it's about.
Good.
I know what it's about. Ben Sulayam, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you know who I mean if you know who I mean.
Mohammed Ben Sulayem?
Yes, that guy.
Yeah.
He's the FIA president. He's known for other things as well. But regardless, he has done...
What else is he known for?
There might have been some previous incidents with him. Correct?
Really?
I think. Has there not been? I thought he's been in hot water in the past. Am I mistaken?
Not that I know of.
Oh, maybe he hasn't. Maybe
Michael Massey was the one who directed Abu Dhabi 2021.
Yes.
But he was a race director, not the president.
Well, regardless, it's not important then.
The only thing that I know of is that Mohammed Ben Sulayem crashed a Renault F1 car after saying, no, I know how to drive one of these.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that, actually. That was pretty funny.
Which, fair enough. It happens. But anyway, sorry.
Regardless, he has done an about face. He was saying for a very long time that he was fully in support of Andretti joining the grid as an 11th team.
Okay.
He was quite excited about expanding the grid to up to 12 teams, and he had been quite vocal about this.
I see.
He just came out in a new interview saying that he thinks Andretti should look into purchasing an existing team and that they do not fit the bill for being an 11th team. He has basically said that 11th and 12th teams should be reserved for original equipment manufacturers, so actual manufacturers entering the sport that want to make a full works team. Is essentially what he said. He said that he thinks those spots should be for OEMs that are dedicated to entering the sport.
Right. Yeah, I think Isuzu should really get an F1 team.
I would be thrilled if Skoda joined.
Yes. I think Skoda needs a Formula One team.
So
I think Daihatsu needs a Formula One team.
TVR again.
TVR would be sick.
Did they ever have an F1 team? They didn't. No.
No.
And
They barely had cars.
They made sporty cars at least. It seems reasonable that they might have attempted something like that.
They had race cars.
They did have race cars.
They had race cars that were more reliable than their road cars.
Yes.
Do the math on that.
Well, their road cars are pretty dismal.
It's almost like you need an entire race team to maintain their products.
I was watching a Donut Media video the other day. Did you know? Do you know what TVR originally stood for?
No.
It just stands for Trevor.
Oh, I did know that.
Oh, well, there you go.
I did know that. Now that you say it, I have the recollection of it because the founder's name is Trevor.
Yeah.
But TVR is pretty cool.
It's just
the
Trevor.
logo is very cool. But
yeah, it is a cool logo.
This is not a TVR podcast. Unfortunately,
It's a fun company.
The Sedaris is one of the greatest design cars of all time.
Yeah, it's kind of ugly, but
That's why it's fantastic.
yeah.
Anything that's designed ugly is beautiful. Those are the rules. We're in a postmodern society, bro.
Yeah, you're a
That's
big
how things
design
work.
guy.
I'm a massive design guy. I'm also a big postmodern guy. I'm going to get some glasses where one of them is a pentagon and then the other is a circle with a slash through it. Anyways.
Well, so you seem to have been unaware of this news, though.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't
so
know that
what are your
Mohammed Ben
thoughts?
Salam said that.
What are your thoughts?
It seems as
Put you on
though
the spot.
this is my preliminary thoughts from what you were talking about. It seems as though everybody involved in F1, I think they want to get rid of two teams.
Yes.
I think the people involved in F1 that don't want Andretti to enter want them to buy one of two teams that they don't think is good enough to be in F1.
And who do you think those two teams are?
Haas and Alpine.
Oh, really?
Alpine especially.
Really? Okay, I wouldn't be... I thought you were going to say Alpine. I'm a bit surprised you said Haas
And not
over
Williams?
V-Carb.
Oh, V-Carb? Ugh.
I still don't think there's any reason for Red Bull to have two teams
Kind of
on the
forgot
grid.
about that, to be completely honest. It clearly doesn't work.
No.
Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel were the only two drivers that they got, which, like, yeah, they're great drivers, but two drivers.
Yeah.
They've had, like, I'm going to go and say probably upwards of 20 drivers pass through that farm team system.
Well, yeah.
I
and
kind of didn't even think about that.
even Vettel did his debut with Sauber, technically, didn't he? It wasn't
I
the
don't
Toro
know.
Rosso team. It was the BMW team that he...
Are you sure, or was it Minardi, which is what that team was?
Oh, it might have been Minardi.
I think it was Minardi.
Yeah, it might have been Minardi.
It was Minardi, and then he got his first win in a Toro Rosso in Monza.
Right.
But yeah, two drivers had a decent time at Red Bull's junior team and went on to become Red Bull senior team members. Now,
Yes.
Daniel Ricciardo also did, so maybe three, but
Yeah,
like
maybe three.
two of them have really worked out.
And I mean, Carlos Sainz, if him and Max had gotten along, probably would have
but
gone on for that. But
He only really blossomed in his like McLaren
Yep.
era.
yep, I'd agree.
He went to Renault and it was like okay, and then he went to McLaren and
I
it
forgot
was
he
like
drove for Renault.
yeah.
Oh
it
my
was-
goodness,
it
I
was-
forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
was better than okay. And then he went to Ferrari and things were actually looking nice
Yeah, he's been doing
in the
quite well
past
at
couple
Ferrari.
years.
I still
The
don't think
general
he's on the level
trajectory.
of Leclerc
No,
at Ferrari.
absolutely not.
I think the people trying to advocate that he
Are
is
nuts.
are a little bit crazy.
And they're like, he's the only Ferrari driver to have won up until now. For the past 2 years. It's like,
well,
can you point out 2 other people on the grid that are not named Sergio Perez that have won?
Yeah, exactly.
In the last 2 years?
Well,
no, you can't.
George Russell.
Not in the last 2 years.
In the last 2 years?
2022.
Yeah, it's 2024.
Whatever. Leclerc won. No, it was including this year is why they're saying it. Because Leclerc won in 2022, and they were saying Leclerc did not win in 23 and had not won in 24. But now they're wrong.
Well, Russell won in the tail end of the 2022 season, so it still would fall in the last 2 years.
I'm making a point that I don't like anyways, so I'm not going to defend it. It's a stupid point made in a stupid way, and now they're wrong. That's what's important. Anyhow, how did we get here? Yes, I'd be perfectly fine if Red Bull sold off that team and it actually could get restructured by a different interest than Red Bull.
Yeah.
Because Red Bull is never going to let that team get as good as them.
No, they won't. They have no desire or interest to.
So that is a problem. And that's a problem that I literally just figured out. I never thought about that. Red Bull is always going to keep them down.
I'm surprised you've never thought about this.
I've never thought about that.
I've thought about this a lot.
Because there had never been interest in anybody getting into F1 like Andretti has.
So
if Red Bull's ownership of a second team got in the way of Andretti getting in, I would be furious.
Well, it is. It's actively doing that,
I guess.
Technically.
And Horner is one of the ones that wants them to buy a team, so maybe he wants to offload V-Carb to them.
I think Horner was one of the people more interested in getting rid of V-Carb, although...
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Clearly there is some dispute there. Because Horner said in interviews before as well that V-Carb is always being for sale. He just would sell it for the right price kind of thing. He's openly said that in interviews. I think he was on a podcast and said that even. But it's a dumb team because if there's anybody that's good enough on that team, staff-wise, design-wise for the car, anything like that, they're going to go to the main Red Bull team.
Yes, and
there's no reason for them not to unless they just straight up refuse for some reason.
Yeah.
And that team is always going to be worse than Red Bull. There's no reason for it to ever be better. They will never let it be better.
Yeah. Or on par or even close.
If anybody is good enough from that team to drive for the main team, they will.
Yeah.
They are not going to let them sit in that team. Their drivers will never be good enough to win.
Nope.
Their car will never be good enough to win. It is a pointless team to have.
It's true.
It just siphons random points away from the other teams actually trying to compete.
I can't believe I've watched F1 for this long and never thought about it.
I hate them.
I never thought about it.
I hate their existence. Like, I don't hate the people on the team.
No, but the fact that it's owned by the same entity.
Team.
Yeah, and it's a junior. Team. It's an obvious junior team. It's too bad, but yeah. Okay, so there are 3 teams that I think
could go.
People in F1 that are in positions of power want to go.
Yep.
That is what I'm starting to think.
Yeah, probably.
They want Alpine to go. I think they are beginning to want Haas to go. Yeah,
possibly. I mean, Haas has been doing okay this season. Nico's been putting in some good performances. I mean, Magnussen's probably making the FIA very angry, honestly, with what he's been doing. And we'll get more into that a little bit later, too.
We certainly will.
But I'm not convinced that Haas is on the chopping block for the FIA just yet. I think Alpine, even with their history in the sport as Renault and everything like that, they've just been a mismanaged team. They haven't really been a competitive team in an extremely long time.
Yeah.
They are a full works team, which I think they have to their advantage, but they can't really get their act together.
I think it's actually a disadvantage.
But it seems like that's what the FIA and what F1 wants is full works teams.
Certainly full works. Yeah, I guess. So you don't own the rights but like let's play this out. Yeah. You buy Alpine as the F1 team.
Yep.
You fire everybody.
Yep. Sure. You fire. Okay. Get rid of everybody.
You have an empty engine factory, an empty aero department. You are starting from scratch with all the costs associated, but none of the onboarding power.
Sure.
You don't want Alpine employees onboarding your engine department.
Yeah, but like
You don't want the chassis department on board and your new chassis engineers?
the problem is too, where is all of Alpine's factory and everything based?
So,
Where do you know?
from what I understand, the engine manufacturing is all in France.
Yep.
Everything else is like every other F1 team is in England.
Yes.
So they do the chassis engineering in England, they do the suspension, they do the aerodynamics, and everything else other than the engine is in England.
I see.
But the engine is built in France, and I've heard that the English and French employees do not get along.
I mean, that makes sense, quite frankly.
It really does.
So I could see the French government putting up quite a fuss if Alpine were to sell because of the loss of jobs and employment.
Yeah, I mean,
I bet you the FIA has in F1 itself.
And the FIA, they've been called the French IA.
Yes. I bet they have a lot of pressure from the
biases.
French government to not let that happen.
Maybe. Anyways,
knowing France,
I want
and how
Andretti to get in, and I want fresh blood, a fresh approach.
Yep.
I don't want them to buy another team and have to put up with their headquarters, their ways of thinking,
even if they
their processes.
They'd just be buying the title, essentially, unless it was baked into the agreement that they have to keep their processes and everything.
That's what
because they've already built a new factory. They've already built these facilities.
Alpine is stating that if you buy Alpine, you have to guarantee the engine.
Right,
until
right.
2028.
You did mention that before. I forgot about that.
That's 3 years. If you buy it this year, you're entering an Alpine engine for 2025, 6, 7, and 8.
It's already not very well regarded either. People don't particularly like the Alpine engine, Renault engine that's in it.
Only one car on the grid has it.
Yeah, they have no customer teams. They have nobody else that's interested. And by the way, what I mean by that is some of the other teams on the grid, like Aston Martin and McLaren, they buy their engines from Mercedes because it's a good engine.
Haas buys their engine from Ferrari
because it's a good engine.
Yep.
These various teams will buy their engines from these top tier teams because they can't afford to develop their own engine. But Alpine develops their own engine and has no customer teams. There are no other teams currently interested in using Renault's engines, and I keep interchanging those because they're the same company essentially. There's no other teams interested in using these engines at all. They do not care. Nobody wants them. Even for the new regulations switching over, no team has opted to go with Renault's engines.
No, there's going to be more engine manufacturers than almost ever.
Yeah.
By the time 2026 comes around.
Yes, yeah, because Honda's getting back in with a relationship with Aston Martin.
Yep.
Red Bull is now developing their own engines for those regulations.
They're going to have 4 or 5.
Yeah, Mercedes, Ferrari, obviously still around.
Yeah, so Williams,
and
Aston
then
Martin,
Audi is also making their own engine now,
right,
too.
there's going to be 6. Williams, Aston Martin, and McLaren all buy Mercedes engines. State, whatever, Sauber. State,
Ferrari,
and Haas use Ferrari engines.
Yep. Yeah.
And then Red Bull kind of has a Red Bull powertrain. That's basically
Honda.
just a Honda.
Yeah.
And then Alpine has their own. But yeah, I'm disappointed with how this whole Andretti thing is going. I've said that multiple times, and I hope that it gets better.
I think
it's weird to see people flip-flop that way against it.
Yeah, because things were kind of looking up, especially with like some FIA employees moving over into Andretti's company.
Yes. But when you specifically say you would like it, and then you say you wouldn't, then it's like the only thing to change that is you got told something. Obviously.
Yeah. I think, well, the thing that the FIA has been saying for a little bit is that they're not convinced that Cadillac's involvement is actually that large.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there's been some new information that's come up about that. And maybe they were kind of proven correct on that point, and Cadillac's involvement really isn't that large.
Maybe.
And if that's the case, then the FIA might turn their nose up at another just random race team entry.
Yeah.
Because the likes of Williams and Haas have not been doing that well in the sport, really.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, Williams is on an upward upward trajectory, but that's only because of leadership.
Slightly, though.
Yeah.
And Williams. Oh. Let's get into a fun fact about Williams for this race. I just saw this. Williams did not have enough parts again for this race. So Logan Sargent was running a 2023 spec Monaco rear wing because they could not afford to bring 2 2024 spec rear wings for Monaco.
It worked out.
He did pass somebody.
He passed people.
He did not come even remotely close to getting points, to be clear. But he did pass somebody.
Neither did Lance Stroll.
But also, everybody in the field was driving minimum 4 seconds slower than what they possibly could have been doing. Minimum.
I mean, he had to manage his tires like everybody else did. We are off topic.
So
I'm not saying that Logan
skeptical of
Sargent is
the
a
upward
god,
trajectory for Williams at this point still. Let's just say that.
They're on the up. I think they're on a slight upward trajectory.
They got 1 point.
And 3 teams. They got 2.
Did they get 2 now?
Yeah, he got 9th. That's 2 points.
Oh, I didn't know he got 9th. Yes.
He got 9th.
Wow, very good job.
Yes. Thank you.
2 points. That was their first
2 points in one race
of the season.
Whatever, man. It's just that 3 other teams are skidding very badly. So it's looking pretty good. But anyhow, those are our fan emails.
Those were our fan emails, yes.
No response from that guy who offered the marketing thing. So
No, he didn't message us back.
Monaco 2024.
Yes.
Here we are. Where to begin? Qualifying, perhaps?
Well, let's I will briefly talk about practice. Very briefly talk about
practice. Go
ahead,
because I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it either, but I think the results are probably worth noting at least a little bit. I think practice is usually pretty useless and doesn't tell you pretty well anything.
Yes.
But it is probably important to note Leclerc was pretty dominant all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He topped, I think, every single practice session. If not, it was 2 out of the 3.
I think it was 2 out of the 3. I think Mercedes topped the last one.
Oh, it might have been Hamilton for one of them or
Could be
Russell.
Wrong,
but anyways, Leclerc was pretty dominant regardless in practice of that. And Verstappen struggled in pretty much every practice session.
He did.
So
he did. I can talk about why.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the Red Bull is not good with bumps, which is not. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
It's bizarre because the previous years it looked so good on its wheels compared to every other car, and it handled bumps so much better.
Yeah. So what I wonder, and this is getting into some real tech nerdy talk. All right, but stay with me.
Yeah.
There are 2 suspension. It's basically one. There's a suspension fundamental that is called anti-dive. Now, I was going to say 2 because there's anti-dive and anti-squat. Yeah. Now, when an F1 team or any race car designer or any even car designer actually sets out to design suspension geometry, mainly race car designer because it's like a single purpose. It's not meant to be comfortable or last a long time. It's meant to be very good at keeping the wheels stuck to the ground. There's a fundamental called, we'll start with anti-dive, and in a quick way, you know when you brake, the front of your car dives down because all your momentum is heading forward, you're putting a stop to it, so naturally the weight goes forward and the suspension compresses because most of your weight is now moving to the front, compressing the front suspension.
Yep.
You can design suspension so that it actively resists that squatting or that diving.
Yep.
So with the angle of the suspension arms, you can adjust that. Red Bull's 2023 car had good anti-dive and anti-squat, but they took it even farther in 2024. So when they hit the brakes, the car has, if I remember this correctly, the car actually lifts at the front axle technically.
Oh, really?
So what that also does is it puts a lot, because essentially you're using geometry to put even more force into the tires. So it makes your braking performance much better and keeps the car more balanced.
Oh, interesting.
Anti-squat is the same thing, but that happens under acceleration. So if you're sitting in your commuter car and you floor it, you'll feel it rock back and your weight will go to the back and compress the rear suspension. Anti-squat stops that from happening, so that when you mash on the gas, it keeps the car more balanced. They also have a very high anti-squat. Now, here's what I believe about this. I don't know if this is true or not, but I believe that anti-dive and anti-squat get thrown off by bumps.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you are lifting the front, so like let's say with Monaco, there are a couple of braking zones where there are a lot of bumps in them.
Yep.
So if you're braking and you're pushing the wheels further down into the ground with your suspension geometry to hold your front end up, if you're hitting bumps, it's going to make your car that much stiffer under braking and the bumps that much more detrimental to your suspension and braking performance. And same thing with accelerating out of a corner.
Yeah.
Because now you're as you hit the gas, it wants to compress, but it's actually lifting the rear end and pushing the tires more down into the ground. And the same thing, it can get chattery basically. So that's my hypothesis. But I know that Red Bull has very good anti-dive and anti-squat, but that can be detrimental, and it is being shown, in my belief, in the problems with the bumps.
Yep.
So that is why Red Bull didn't do that well.
Yeah,
I believe there was actually a symptom of this in Singapore of last year.
That would make sense, because
bumpy street circuit.
Yeah, it's these kind of circuits that they've been struggling at.
We'll
Although they were fine at Monaco of last year.
They were, but they might have upgraded and developed into even more anti-squat and anti-dive.
Yeah, they probably did.
So keep an eye out on the rough tracks to see what Red Bull does, if they fix the problem and it's no longer an issue, or if it continues.
Yeah,
Singapore is really the only other bumpy one.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many.
Like Baku is not. It's actually pretty smooth and pretty sleek.
Yeah,
because they go so fast that those roads have to be.
Yeah, even like most of the street tracks that are still to come are not that bad.
Not really.
So Singapore is the only one that's comparable to Monaco, really.
Yeah.
The rest are not really so much. But yeah,
good performance for Leclerc through qualifying, and the Red Bull is just not really putting anything together.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, not really.
So then into qualifying.
Yep.
To kind of make it quick, Leclerc got pole.
Yep.
And this is our regularly scheduled Sergio Perez talk. Sergio Perez did not make it through Q1. He qualified 15th.
Was it that high?
Yeah, I believe so. Maybe it wasn't.
I thought it was 18th.
It might have. Actually, no, you're right. It was 18th.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought
it was 18th.
I thought it was
yes, you are
right.
You are right, because there were only two drivers behind him, both Hasses. We will get to that. The Hasses actually qualified kind of decently, but it was found that they had an illegal rear wing, so they were forced to start from the back.
Is interesting. How was that not found out ahead of time?
I have no idea.
That seems so bizarre.
I have no idea.
But
it kind of seems like they only like doing tech inspections immediately after qualifying and immediately after the race, so that they can just ruin whatever you just accomplished.
Yeah, it's just like it seems like one of those things that a team should be informed about ahead of time, and then have an opportunity to make that change, rather than just oh, by the way, screw you.
Yeah.
But so horrible performance from Perez.
Absolutely dreadful.
Crazy dismal. I don't know if he just hit a ton of traffic on his lap, but even before that lap, he wasn't doing that well or anything.
He didn't.
So I think he just had a bad lap.
He had 2 flying laps.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get out of the bottom 15.
Yeah.
In a Red Bull.
It was just hard to watch almost. And he came on the radio afterwards and just kind of swore, but
it was just mad.
Yeah. But
then
I don't know if he was mad at himself, mad at what.
I think he was. Just what are you blaming on?
Yeah,
nobody impeded him. There was no traffic. There was a little bit of a mix-up with some traffic between Piastri and Sainz, and I think one other. I think one of the Alpines got in the way. But anyhow, But it's super hard at Monaco to stay out of the way. But I would say for the most part, people did a really good job of staying out of the way.
Yeah, generally speaking, there wasn't too much really bad impeding this time around or anything.
No.
So generally pretty good. I think the other big driver to fall that I would like to note as well, who was in 16th, was Alonso.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I think he did get screwed by traffic a bit when I was watching his lap.
It could be. So it's about, I guess, Do you consider being screwed by traffic meaning that you can't get an ideal run?
I think his lines were heavily compromised compared to some others.
Could be.
Could
But
when I
also
was
the
watching
Aston
his,
Martin was
in
bad.
It wasn't that great in this race,
Which is
that's for
crazy.
sure. But I thought it would be good in this one.
I
This
thought so
seems
too, because the Aston Martin looks better anytime it's higher downforce.
Yeah, so that was confusing as well.
It's disappointing.
But like coming around in the last sector, there were a lot of cars parked up when it was at the end of Alonso's lap that were gearing up for their laps.
Right.
And they were all kind of slowly filing out one at a time. And I do think that probably got in his way
totally
a little bit.
I'm sure he could have gotten better. He qualified, 16th?
16th.
I'm sure he could have done better than that in ideal situations. But yeah, it's a little worrisome that it's kind of sliding a little bit.
Yeah, 16th. And then, Perez 18th. It was then Valtteri and Joe that were behind him.
Yes.
Yeah. Logan Sargent qualified just ahead of Perez.
Yeah.
And the Haas cars both actually did make it into Q2.
They did.
They didn't make it into Q3, but they did make it into Q2.
Yeah.
But yeah, another race where Alonso was out-qualified by Stroll.
Yep.
Which actually I think brings them even in their head-to-head all of a sudden for qualifying results. Either that or it's like one off, which kind of crazy. But also, I mean, I think there's a little bit of asterisks, but some of them Stroll has legitimately just seemingly beaten him.
Yep.
So, fair play.
What's the race head-to-head looking like, David?
What's the race head-to-head looking like?
I think it's 5-1.
I think you're probably right. I think the race head-to-head is a little bit different.
If you count point scoring opportunities, Alonso's beating him every single time. But anyhow, it is what it is. It's tough for Aston Martin. We hope that they bounce back.
Yes.
Other than qualifying, I don't really have anything other than that, which we just talked about. We can get into the race.
Yeah, I mean, there
was a boat crash.
There was that boat crash.
There was a
that was
boat crash
interesting.
on the docks. A water taxi, which I don't know if it's for people or luggage.
Yeah.
It looks like it was for luggage because I don't think rich people would step foot on a utility boat such as that.
Yep.
Lost control. The driver fell off and the throttle was like down because with both throttles you have to you just push it down and it stays down. And then it launched in between two yachts and almost took a guy out on the docks. It was crazy. And then got beached up.
Yep. Before we move on from qualifying,
Yeah.
In the top half of the people in qualifying, you literally only mentioned Leclerc getting pole and nobody else in that lineup.
Yeah, because that's all I care about. No, Piastri got second, Sainz got third, Norris got fourth, and then I believe fifth was George Russell.
Yes, it was.
Sixth was Max Verstappen.
Yes.
Seventh was Lewis Hamilton.
Yep.
Eighth, hold on, I'll get it.
Ooh,
I'm
is he
going to do
gonna
a
get
perfect top 10.
Ooh, boy. It's somebody that you really like.
Who is eighth? Hold on. I need you to be
like
quiet.
him a lot.
George Russell.
You're always talking about him. And
It was
how
Yuki
much...
Tsunoda,
Yeah.
Alex Albon, and Pierre Gasly. That's who it was. That
I
was
was
the
about to
top
say
10.
you're.
That was the top 10. Do you know how I know the top 10?
How?
Because that's how it's finished. I told you that driver order twice.
Oh,
That was
my
pretty good though,
goodness.
wasn't it?
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm impressed by that.
What can I say?
Yeah, so let's get into
Let's get into the race.
the actual race. So again, the Haas's started from the pit lane because
No, from the back.
from the back of the grid. Yes,
Back
not
of
the
the
pit
grid.
lane. It was somebody started. Was it Alonso that started in the pit lane?
No, I
thought
don't think
somebody
anybody did.
Oh,
Nope.
for some reason I thought somebody started in the pit lane. My
No,
bad.
somebody started in pit lane in Imola. Alonso started in the pit lane in Imola.
Yeah.
But let's start from the front on the first lap.
Yes.
So the first lap is underway. I'm losing my mind as a Leclerc fan because Max Verstappen is 6 places back. I don't know how you'd make up 6 places. That's what's going through my head.
Yep.
So I'm like, realistically, it's Piastri, and with how close it was. So the thing that was exciting was the Ferrari McLaren battle through the entire race, and the fact that if anything happened, it would be it could be completely detrimental to either team.
Yeah, I agree.
It really was a 50-50 shot of either team having their best chance at the win taken away from them. Leclerc was obviously in first, but McLaren, something could have happened. They could have made a bad call. But anyways, Leclerc kept the position. Everybody basically kept their positions. Sainz almost got Piastri into the first turn.
Yep.
They made a little bump there.
Yep.
He picked up a puncture on his front left because of that.
Yes.
Like right away. Tire deflating. He had a lockup going into like turn 2.
Yep. And he dropped down to 16th place.
Well,
I think.
yeah, I mean, like that was around the left-hander. When it went to go right at turn 4, he locked up completely.
Yeah, slid straight.
That was his outside wheel that went flat, and he could not stop.
He cannot.
So it looked like his race was completely over.
Yeah, right off the hop, it was like, oh my goodness, Sainz's race was over. But then all of a sudden, a bunch of red flags came out.
They sure did.
And you were like, well, Sainz didn't hit the wall or anything. Why did all these red flags just come out?
By the time Leclerc got down to the swimming pool, the race was red flags.
Swimming pool is a section of the track. They name it that.
They name it that because there's a swimming pool up on the roof that you barely ever see.
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah.
It is confusing.
Yeah, all of a sudden you were sitting there and you were just like, what is this red flag?
It was like yellow. It was yellow flagged because of Sainz.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, boom, red flagged. And I was like, what on earth?
Yeah, it's like, did they really just call Sainz like sliding a red flag?
Let's get into what happened.
But it was a bit more than that.
This is going to be interesting, people, I think.
Yes.
Do you want to take it away?
All right. So, let's move to the back of the grid.
The very, very, very back.
The very back of the grid. So,
a Red Bull's natural habitat?
One Red Bull's natural habitat, maybe. So, Perez got off the line. I wouldn't say it was a particularly amazing start, but nothing horrible for him. He didn't really jump anybody off the start. He kind of just held position. In the Haas's, managed to get past the Sauber vehicles, basically, and that's sort of what happened off the hop.
Which was crazy, actually.
Yeah, pretty impressive that they managed to do that. Yeah. And then, coming around the first corner, Magnussen has the inside line, and Nico Hülkenberg is on the outside and is forced to stop. They're both behind Perez. And Magnussen starts driving up the right side of Perez. Hülkenberg is a little bit further back on the left side of Perez, but like not really close enough to actually do anything.
They are almost 3 wide.
Almost. Hülkenberg was
almost 3
quite
wide.
Far back from that being the case, though.
Sure.
Realistically, Hülkenberg wasn't there.
He wasn't alongside in any manner, but I'm saying they were. There was
probably like another car length between Perez and Hülkenberg, realistically.
Almost, yeah. What I'm just trying to say is that they were fanned out.
Yeah.
No cars were behind each other.
Yeah.
None of these 3 cars were behind each other in any manner.
Magnussen tears up the right-hand side, and he gets sort of alongside Perez. Mm-hmm. About half of Magnussen's car is alongside Perez.
Yes.
And
on the outside.
On the outside
of the corner coming up.
Of the next corner, yes. On the outside of the next corner. And what happens is there's a little kink where the wall kind of cuts in and
then flares back out.
And Perez held his line. He was looking at his mirror the whole time, and Magnussen had kind of nowhere to go, I'd say, other than slamming on his brakes.
Yeah.
And he got pinched and basically took Perez out.
Pit maneuvered Perez into the wall.
Pit maneuvered Perez, but like Magnussen couldn't go to the right.
Yeah.
So he pit maneuvers Perez. Perez goes flying into the wall. His car spins around, hits Hülkenberg's car as well.
Yes.
With Joe sitting a bit further away.
Joe just slammed on the brakes the second that debris started flying, and he got through it completely unscathed.
Yep. So it ends.
Which great reaction. Great reaction by Joe. That was impressive.
It was impressive. It ends with Perez's car way up the road, completely totaled.
Both front tires somehow tucked under the crash structure.
Yep.
Which looked crazy.
Yeah, it did look pretty crazy. It was crumpled. Hülkenberg's car destroyed. Magnussen's car destroyed.
Yeah.
All of those cars just wrecked.
And the race red flagged.
And the race got red flagged.
For like half an hour. 35 minutes, I believe it was.
It was quite a long one because there was quite a bit of wall damage that they had to repair,
yes.
so it made it take quite a bit of time.
3 cars they had to train off the track.
Yep. Yeah.
Because there are no escape roads.
Yeah,
At
Monaco's
Monaco,
pretty tight.
They have
so.
to hoist every car off the track with a crane
Yep.
to a safe area.
Crane operator that sits there ready to go at all times to get a car off the track if need be.
But let's get this out of the way quickly. A bunch of the marshals took a posed photo.
They did. They posed with the Red Bull.
And they're all like putting their
it was quite funny, honestly.
Just a mangled car.
Yeah.
So let's get into this, David. What's your verdict on what happened? Because let me confirm, I believe Magnussen got a penalty point for that.
Did he get a penalty point for that?
I believe so.
At first I thought he didn't. But I forgot to follow up on that to double check. I certainly don't think Magnussen should have gotten a penalty point for it. To be honest, Monaco's a tight track. I would.
Oh, he avoided a penalty. Sorry, I'm wrong. He did not get a penalty.
He got a penalty point for it.
He did not get a penalty.
I personally don't think he should have.
I don't think he should have gotten a penalty at all. I don't think that was his fault.
I also don't think it was his fault.
You know what's funny? We agree with Jeremy Clarkson. Did you know that?
Do we?
Yes. Jeremy Clarkson said that was not Magnussen's fault.
Really? I didn't know that.
So we agree with one of the 3 greatest car presenters of all time. Not a big deal.
Yeah, well.
Not a big deal.
I think if that was on anybody, that was on Perez.
I agree.
There's footage of him looking in his mirror.
He
knew Hülkenberg, or not, he knew Magnussen was there. He knew Hülkenberg was further back and he had room on his left.
Yep.
He left no space into a tight corner where Magnussen couldn't have gone anywhere else.
And it provided him no real competitive advantage.
Yeah. He already had the inside line.
He had the inside line on the left-hander, and Perez could have outbraked Magnussen into the right-hander, and it's a Red Bull. You should be able to outbrake a Haas.
And, if they're going to call some of the stuff Alonso's done earlier this year dangerous driving and give him penalties for it, what Perez did there was unnecessarily dangerous for a move that wasn't that threatening to him.
It really wasn't.
It just was.
And Perez didn't have to back out of it. He just had to move a foot or two to the left.
Yeah, he just had to move slightly to the left and keep it pinned. And he just instead pinched a guy that was already partially alongside of him. And
so I should say, he wasn't posing that much of a threat, but he was advancing decently.
He was.
So it's so are you just allowed to push people into walls now? We'll get into that in the later half of that lap. Actually, we kind of went from the front to the back, and then we forgot about the middle because there's so much that went on.
There's something else to talk about, but I figured that was less significant.
Yeah, I completely think that was.
I think it's Perez's fault. Yeah,
you cannot when the track. I believe, from my understanding of the rules, you must maintain your space on the track. So if you are 1 car length off a wall, and somebody goes into, or 1 car width off a wall, and somebody goes into that, you cannot make that less than 1 car width.
Okay, I was going to ask you if you knew some more about the rules surrounding it, because I wasn't sure about the regulations.
But from my understanding in general is that you have to maintain your posture, and in F1 you get 1 defensive move.
Yeah.
But you have to make that move before the braking zone and well in advance, and you that was not a defensive move.
No.
Going straight and pinching is not a defensive move.
No. That was unnecessarily aggressive when Perez clearly knew Magnussen was there.
Yeah.
And it was funny, too, because the presenters were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. They're like, oh, maybe he was just looking at Hulkenberg in his left mirror.
And then
not
you see
really...
the replay and he's looking to the right.
Yeah, he's looking in his right mirror the entire time and just crushes Magnussen.
It makes no sense. That was pretty frustrating. On top, not that it matters, but 3 out of my 5 fantasy drivers did not finish the race.
Same?
Yeah.
Same?
So I was like, that sucks. That sucks a little bit. It is what it is, but beyond that, I was like, you just took out an entire team because you pinched a guy.
I lost a ton of points this weekend.
I believe that was pinching.
I believe so, too. I think that's pushing somebody into a wall. That's pushing somebody wide in the most severe way possible.
Yeah. If there was runoff, it would have probably been fine, but this is Monaco. There's no runoff anywhere.
There was nowhere for Magnussen to go. He could have absolutely slammed on his brakes, but I don't think it was his responsibility to throw away his own race there.
No.
Because of Perez not moving.
Yep.
And I think it was an aggressive move from Magnussen, but I don't think every
I don't
aggressive
think
move in the sport should be penalized.
And I don't think it's the worst thing. I don't think it's the worst thing that he's done.
No.
And I say that in like a decent way.
Yeah.
I don't mean that to be insulting to Magnussen.
Well, he's done some aggressive things lately that he definitely deserved penalties for. But like,
yeah, but then he also took him on the chin. Like,
yeah, he was like, "Yep, yeah." So yeah, I was like, that looks like it's Perez's fault to me.
Yeah.
I don't see how it's Magnussen's fault really.
Because you do have to. You can't just race with no concern for what's happening behind you.
Yeah.
You do have to work with other drivers. Now, Perez doesn't know anything about that because if you remember last year, all he could do to work with other drivers was crash into them and bounce off of them. But
he just consistently drives in a way where he's so unaware of everybody else around him.
Yeah.
It seems like, because last year this happened race after
horrible.
race.
It was horrible
where he would just dive into a corner, slam into somebody because he's just doing his own thing. And he doesn't really ever suffer that many consequences.
No, he
from
doesn't.
it.
He doesn't.
So, like...
It was pretty frustrating. And
yeah.
I think, like, if his in-car decision was that, Magnussen's almost got a race ban, he'll back out.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're not competing?
And, like, it's not like that was... So, like, that was 18th place that Perez was in. Like,
yeah.
He's... Or like
you shouldn't even be there.
Technically, it was further than that because the Haas is moving down the grid. But like, Perez is like well below the top 10 at that point.
You shouldn't be there.
So like, if he is planning on somehow scoring points still, why did he make that move in the first place? Because if he's that confident, he can go pass like 6 other cars in front of him to get back to the top 10.
Or at least just like I think with that move, Perez ruined his own race by
that's what I'm saying.
by not cooperating at all. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like
if he even had the chance.
If he exactly. If he even had the chance to make it back there, then even if Magnussen could get past him there, which I'm skeptical that he even could, then Perez should have been able to recover and get past him again.
Yes,
because he is in a Red Bull. And certainly if anybody can pass on Monaco, probably a Red Bull trying to pass an Aston Martin or a Haas at the back of the field should be able to do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
well, I'm happy that Magnussen did not get any penalty points. But yeah, that was kind of absurd. And some of the commentators did think that it was more Magnussen's fault. And I was like,
I was like,
sorry, he's alongside.
Yep.
All the time, you have to leave it a space, as Fernando Alonso would say.
Yep.
So that was that. Then immediately, like simultaneously as that's happening, Esteban Ocon bashes into the side of Pierre Gasly.
Like slams up to...
Like wheel banging, and there were some parts that flew off.
Yeah, they were.
I don't know from whose car. I believe it was Ocon's, but there were parts that flew off.
Wheel on wheel that hit.
Yeah.
And basically, there's this very sharp right-hand turn.
No, I'm talking about before that.
Oh, before
the first
that.
Time they hit.
Oh, right, the first time they hit.
On the left-hander that Perez had to defend like his life depended on it from an outside attack. That never happens. Esteban Ocon tried to get around Gasly. Well, there was enough space. I just don't know what he was doing.
I don't know what he was doing.
He just hit him. Like I think I sent you the video.
He just bumped into him.
Did you see it?
You might have sent it to me. I didn't see it.
I sent it to you, but that's okay. Anyways, he bumps into him, and then Gasly like recoils and like stays more left because like Ocon drives like a maniac.
Yeah, he does.
Then they go through the hairpin, and then coming out of the hairpin, Ocon looks pretty aggressive. There's a right-hander and then a sharp right-hander, and Ocon sends it down the inside of Gasly, which wouldn't be the worst thing.
Yep.
Except when you squeeze your teammate wide on the exit. Ocon does not have the pass done, and he pushes so that there's not even a car width between his car and the wall. Therefore, and Pierre Gasly cannot brake to get out of it.
Nope.
It is too late. He is wedged in. Therefore, Ocon's back left hits Gasly's front right, and it's like shoots his car into the air. The back end of his car was like
he went
honestly on
upwards.
A 45-degree angle.
But like Gasly couldn't have gone anywhere.
No.
He was as far like against the wall as he could have been. There was could
no
not
space
escape
there.
His teammates' wrath there, essentially.
And it's like I can't stand Ocon's driving.
I
I've almost never been able to stand Ocon's driving, and I'm saying this now because I have a pretty good feeling he's not going to be driving next year.
he drives aggressively in a way that is just
It's
annoying.
rude. It's actually rude.
It is, yeah, you're right.
Because it's not skillful.
No.
People complain about Max Verstappen's driving all the time. Sure they do, but he has an element of skill to it.
Yes.
Sure, he made some ballsy moves, and yes, certainly in his career he has made bad moves and crashed out or been crashed out or crashed others out because of it. Certainly.
Yep.
Ocon's been in F1 for like 6 years.
Yeah.
How are you still driving like this? It's like Perez. It's like, how are you still driving like this?
Yeah. He's made so many moves like that over the years where, like, you just have to look at it and be like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's brutal. So anyways, the rumor that came from that, because after the red flag, when they're like, or mid-red flag, all of a sudden they cut to him in his normal clothes and he was walking away.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, he's not restarting the race.
Yeah.
He's done. He's out.
Yeah.
So there's Perez, Magnussen, Hulkenberg,
Ocon.
and Ocon out in the first lap.
Yeah. 4 people.
4 people. I had 3 of them.
I had 3 of them. I had
The same
Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Ocon.
Yeah, same.
All in my lineup.
Because they were good. They were good picks.
Yeah, they're good point
They have
scorers
good value.
usually.
They have good value for the points that they get.
the fantasy pool. But
So anyhow,
well.
but yeah. So then the rumor was that
He's
according to some pit lane reporters, Jack Doohan got called up into the office, and Esteban Ocon got absolutely reamed out and sent home. And then Jack Doohan, who is an F2 driver for Alpine, got called up, and rumor has it he might replace Ocon in Canada, which is the next race.
Yeah, potentially. It's an interesting situation. Right now, Ocon is the lead driver in Alpine, technically. He's
driver.
Outperforming Gasly, at least.
He has.
But he drives in a way that I think is potentially detrimental to the team. And I
think it's repeatedly detrimental to the team.
Yeah, there's been
he got into it with Fernando Alonso when Fernando Alonso was at Alpine.
Yep.
He crashed into Gasly a couple of times last year.
Yep, he did. Yeah.
Every time that they crashed out, it was not Gasly's fault.
Nope, it was not. And you just have Ocon bashing into his teammates left, right, and center.
Yeah, and then in Monaco to send that move after already hitting your teammate earlier in the lap, like 1, 2, 3, 4 corners before.
They didn't show any of the team radio from that, really, but, like, I wonder.
Gasly was. Oh, they showed Gasly's reaction. He was pissed. He was like, he broke the car.
Yeah. So Gasly was mad about that. I'm curious if they were telling Ocon to stop doing what he was doing there at any point.
Man.
Because that's the only reason I can see the team being this angry at him is if they were like,
if
back
they told
off,
him stop, and then he
stop
didn't.
attacking Gasly.
Yeah.
And then he just risked taking both of them out of the race for no reason.
Yes. And Ocon was in 11th. Gasly was in 10th. If anything happened in the top 10, they were an automatic shoe-in for a double points finish.
Yep.
Yeah, Ocon ruined
the positions didn't change in the race. And because of this big red flag that happened, because with Perez and Magnussen, it meant that everybody could change their tires under the red flag.
Yes.
Every race.
And everybody did.
Yeah, and everybody did. Every race, you have to... Oh, except for like one team.
Yeah.
But every race, you have to use at least 2 different tire compounds. Mm-hmm. There's always 3 tire compounds, medium, soft, hard. There's a couple other specialty ones, but they're not really used very often, except for special conditions. But there's those 3 tire compounds. So everybody was allowed to change to a new tire compound under the red flag, which meant that nobody had to pit the entire 78-lap race.
Which was crazy.
So everybody just put hard tires on. Some people had to put mediums on because they were already running hards before.
Yeah. And
they all just drove single file very slowly to conserve their tires for all like 74 laps that were still remaining.
Well, it was on the first lap, so it was 77 laps.
Yeah, but they're like doing the additional formation counts as like another lap, and then
so
there was like another lap
70,
as well. So it was like 74 or something like that.
Gotcha.
It might be 75.
It's enough.
It
was
regardless.
Enough. Yeah.
So again, if Ocon hadn't done that and just kept it clean, if anything had gone on up
in the top
field,
10.
they would have been guaranteed a double point finish.
Yep.
And Ocon just is driving like a maniac for no reason to what?
To try and get 1 point over his teammate
Yeah.
that he ended up. I mean, that was poetic justice that he retired and his teammate got a point.
Yeah, I
it really
agree.
was.
I don't know if Ocon's car was actually so damaged that they needed to retire it.
Or if they just said, get out.
Yeah, or if they just told him to get out, which
Oh,
wouldn't surprise me either.
Man.
Because
He didn't look happy when he was walking away, obviously.
Obviously, the car was also good enough for him to drive back to the pits as well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
So I'm curious if the car was actually damaged enough to retire it, or if they
Maybe.
really were just so mad
Maybe.
at him that they were like, you're done.
That'd be a crazy story. Maybe we'll find out one day.
Yeah, I don't
we'll find out
know.
one
I'm
day.
interested, but then the race restarted,
It sure did.
and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Nothing
Aside
happened.
from Lance Stroll did an oopsie
The,
that ruined his race.
what was his oopsie?
So the plan was that Lance Stroll was in 12th.
Yes.
But then I think that was gifted 11th because Ocon retired.
Yeah.
I believe. Or
Yeah,
maybe
he
Daniel
got
Ricciardo,
to move up
maybe
a couple
Daniel Ricciardo was in
positions. I
there.
don't know.
Stroll could have hypothetically been in the hunt for a point.
Yeah.
He was within, if they played the strategy right and he went fast enough, he was within striking distance. So what happened was, I think he started the race on mediums. He stayed on mediums,
Yes.
I believe. And
yeah,
then
there were a
deep-
couple
and then
teams that stayed.
About halfway into the race, he pitted for hards
Yep.
and was hauling through the field.
Yep.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he made a couple nice passes.
But then a couple laps in, he clipped his left rear tire on a barrier, blew the tire.
Yep.
Which, if that tire would have rolled off on track instead of just inside the pit lane, that could have shaken up the race again.
Yeah, true. True.
Because the thing that was happening was like drivers are trying to build up enough of a gap to the one behind them to get a free pit stop.
Yes.
So that they could get on fresh tires. And that was what was so nerve-wracking about as a Ferrari fan, was like Norris almost had a free pit stop several times. And if a safety car came out or a VSC came out, he had a free pit stop.
Yeah, so like the reason that I know people were saying that I feel like you're trying to make this race more exciting than it was.
No, I'm actually telling you what I was worried about.
I know.
I'm telling you what I was worried about.
So down the field, there were a couple people that were able to make some pit stops.
Yes.
And those people on fresher tires still weren't able to make even a single pass, except for the likes of Logan Sargent and Lance Stroll. Like one of the Mercedes pitted. I think it was Hamilton because he got fastest lap.
Yep.
And he still wasn't. He had a free pit stop because Yuki was an entire lap behind him.
That was crazy.
I don't know what happened there.
It was just pace management.
Yeah, just pace management.
There was no reason to race Hamilton, so they let it go.
So Yuki was driving crazy slow, which again just shows you how hard it is to pass anybody at Monaco.
Yeah.
Because Yuki was able to drive so slow that he was an entire lap behind the person in front of him, and still never got past.
Yep.
But Hamilton pitted for fresh tires, caught back up to the back of. He was behind Verstappen, and he still couldn't pass Verstappen.
They actually kind of
on
messed
fresher
that up
tires.
because Mercedes.
Yes, they messed that up because they didn't tell Hamilton that outlap was critical.
Yeah.
So he didn't push as hard as he could have, and he might have been able to jump Verstappen.
Yeah.
But
then Verstappen probably would have just done something to make it not happen.
Yeah. There's not a lot of evidence to show that even fresher tires, though, was really helping anybody get ahead of anybody else.
Still, your favorite driver's in first place.
I get it.
The other team is behind
get
him,
it, but
and then his teammate is 2 people back. It was very unlikely that Norris was going to be able to make 3 passes because he would have had to pass Sainz, Piastri, and Leclerc to get the win. But I was still on my edge because on the edge of my seat a bit because I was like, if Ferrari messes this up, because 2022 looked like a pretty clear win too.
Yes, but like also you think if Norris pitted like that, 100% you would have had Leclerc picking up the pace. They had so much time in hand.
It's true.
They were just driving slowly to drive slowly.
I was scared of the worst. I'm not saying that anybody else should have been excited for the race because of this. That was the only thing that kept me interested.
Yeah.
I'm not lying. So
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm not trying to make this more excited than it was.
I fell asleep.
I was excited
I fell asleep.
because I'm a true Ferrari Leclerc fan. You're just a poser. You're just a sleepy poser.
It was
A snoozy poser.
Yeah, I fell
it's fair.
asleep.
It's fair.
And I woke up.
I mean,
and
the race
everybody...
was at a nice time though. 9
It
a.m.
was, yeah. Well, I didn't watch it live, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah. I saw the results and then watched it the next day.
I watched it slightly after it started.
I was out and about that day.
Fair
so.
enough. Fair enough.
No.
Well, then that makes even more sense. But
Yes.
anyhow, that was the whole beginning. And then, sorry, where were we? Lance Stroll blew his
Lance
tire
Stroll,
off. But, that tire could have thrown something into the mix.
It could have. It
didn't, which I was happy for. And then basically everybody just managed and conserved until the end of the race. And Charles Leclerc won.
Yep.
Charles Leclerc won one of the most... Well, the beginning was extremely exciting. But then after that, it was one of the most boring races I've ever seen in my life.
It was. And I mean, not like
but
an easy
not
race still.
No.
Like,
for him especially, he did have to, like, it was impressive to watch him put that performance on.
Yeah.
Because he had to perfectly manage, but just stay out of striking distance.
Boring spectator race, but still technically an interesting race for some of the drivers. Verstappen didn't think so.
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah,
the top 4 had a fun race.
Had a fun race. But yeah, like Leclerc still had to be very careful not to make a mistake around Monaco, which was very easy. It's a very tight track. He had to make sure he was managing his pace enough that he wasn't going to cook his tires, but also not so much that Piastri could get past him. So that was kind of interesting too. He's
and
interesting
the
time
top
management.
4 were tight.
Yeah, they were very close.
Like they were
partially because they all had 4 to 5 seconds in hand of pace that they weren't using.
Yes.
So there wasn't really any reason for them to not be tight.
They were just more like feeling each other out.
Yeah. Like nobody was driving to the limit, so there's no reason that it shouldn't be tight.
Yep.
Because it was being deliberately bunched up.
Yep. So Leclerc won. I didn't like cry, but like I was emotional.
Yeah, it was exciting.
I was emotional.
He deserves it.
He too apparently was emotional too. He said he was like his eyes were like
his
welling
eyes
up.
were watering, yeah. Yeah.
Like with 2 laps to go, and that was the only podium celebration I've watched this year.
And I know I mentioned this at the start.
Yeah.
But like the commentary from the F1 TV people on that last lap
was
where
amazing.
Leclerc was bringing it home. I mean, Leclerc's story in F1 is so cool.
It's amazing.
Like
for those that don't know,
so Leclerc came from, as far as F1 drivers go, a more humble background by a long
he's
shot.
still from Monaco, which has the highest average net worth, I believe, of any area in the world.
Yeah. So still from Monaco.
He was considered middle class in Monaco.
Yes.
I don't know what that, but his mom worked.
His mom worked, yeah.
His mom was a
dad was
hairdresser.
a mechanic.
Is that what he
believe.
was? Because I tried looking into that and I couldn't find it anywhere.
I thought he wasn't. I thought I've heard that before.
Okay, could be.
Could be wrong, but that's what I've heard previously.
Both his parents worked.
Both his parents worked. He didn't really have the funds that some drivers usually have to get into F1. The only way that he got in was because his godfather, Jules Bianchi, is it Key or Chi?
It's Bianchi. Technically, yeah.
He basically told Ferrari, like, take this guy on. He's going to do great things. So they brought him on under their, like, programs to move through the ranks.
Through the ranks.
Ferrari Driver Academy.
Of karting. His karting career was almost over.
Yep. His karting career was almost over. And this guy stepped in and talked to Ferrari and was like, you need to sponsor this guy.
Wasn't going to get a drive in F2.
Yes.
That's what it was.
That's
he
what
was.
it was.
He
Okay.
made it through F3, but he couldn't get into F2.
So then worked his way up under Ferrari's program. His dad died before he actually got into F1, but then on his dad's deathbed, just to like make his dad happy, he told his dad that he had made it into F1, which he hadn't actually done yet.
He told him he had signed the contract.
Yeah, that he had signed the contract, that the deal was done. He was in F1. So his dad died before he actually ever got to see him race in F1. So just for Leclerc to make it around this track with his whole life story, his background in Formula One, especially after he's had so many mishaps around it, a lot of which weren't really his fault, was just amazing. He's the first driver from Monaco to win the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, in Formula One, because before that it wasn't even called Formula One.
Yes.
Only one other guy had ever done it, and
Yep.
it wasn't even called Formula One then.
Yep.
It was just like the Monaco Grand Prix car race.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to look this up to make sure, but so essentially in 2017 Leclerc's father died. He lied to him 2 days before he died.
Yep.
3 days after he died, he won the first F2 race. He won both of the first F2 races, because F2 does 2 races per event.
Yeah.
They do a sprint race and then a feature race oftentimes. And he won both that weekend. And I believe he got the Ferrari offer like that year.
Yeah.
Because he entered F1 in 2018. But yes, at some point in that year, I don't remember if it was that weekend or not, but he did sign the contract a couple of months later, I believe. But amazing story, and has actually overcome, like, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but like has actually overcame some things, has actually had loss, has actually had difficulties in F1 and victories in F1. So it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing to see him win his home Grand Prix.
It was
which
cool.
Like is one I would say is definitely one of the hardest ones to win.
Yep. And all the emotion behind it and everything was very cool. It was very cool to see. The lap after he crossed the finish line.
Oh, that was amazing.
All the marshals that help organize the race. And
yeah, they're all from Monaco.
They're all from Monaco. All of them were coming out and
they were
just
waving special flags, or like they were waving like basically any flag they have.
Yeah,
they
every flag they had,
there was like
they were waving.
There was one guy waving a blue and white flag,
Some
like
of
as
them,
if you had to. It was the second last lap, and you had to let somebody pass.
Some of them were like out on track, just clapping and like cheering while he went past. Just everything about it. It was.
There was marshals crying.
Yeah, there was marshals crying.
There was fans crying.
It was an emotional moment.
It was
clearly
amazing
for everybody involved.
Boats in the harbor were all honking.
Yep.
Because I was like, "What the heck is that noise?" And then it got down to the waterfront, and it's like, burn, burn.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So very cool.
You could tell the Prince of Monaco too looked quite emotional.
Amped. Yep.
He looked like he was about to kind of burst out into tears when he was handing over the trophy and everything, and fairly so. That was cool. It was cool.
The Ferrari mechanics went nuts.
Yep.
In the garage.
All of them singing the Italian national anthem too.
Oh, it was nice to hear the Italian national anthem.
I was shocked.
And there was a live band.
There was a live band, yeah. Which weren't terrible.
They weren't terrible, no.
I was shocked by how many other people were singing the Italian national anthem too, because like the prince and the princess were singing the Italian national anthem. Like a bunch of the people were like singing along to it, and I was like, oh, all these people also know this anthem. That's interesting. Monaco is relatively close to
it's
Italy.
Also fairly, if it's almost as Italian as it is French.
Yes,
almost.
Yes,
not
technically
quite.
They speak French, but
yes.
Yeah. So that was cool. Like the emotion from the mechanics, the emotion from everybody, really cool to see. It was a race that meant a lot to
Hearing
him.
his excitement over the radio after he passed over the line too was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so good to see some of that positive emotion. Even Bree said, because she was watching the podium thing with me, she's like, it's so cool that they celebrate like this after a win.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting there, I'm like, this means a lot. I was like, this is a special win, but like, and I did think about that. Like, Formula One does know how to celebrate.
They're very good at their celebrations.
It's cool. It is cool.
And I think the other thing too that made this so sweet as a win, Charles has put up with a lot over the last few years of Ferrari. Last year sucked. The year before, he was robbed by just how bad his team was.
Yep.
2022 was one of the most dismal seasons I think anybody could ever watch.
Yeah.
Like, the team stole that from him, basically.
Yeah, put him on hard tires when he should have been on mediums. Put him on medium tires when he should have been on hards.
Pitted him, and then 5 seconds after they call him into the pit lane, they tell him, don't pit.
Yeah.
Things like that, where they're just butchering it.
Yep.
And for him to actually just come through, like, this is a very nice redemption in a way where we haven't seen him be this competitive in a little while, and it's nice seeing that again.
It was awesome.
It's nice seeing that again. So
it was awesome.
As much as it was a boring race, still some interesting things to talk about, and a cool finish.
Very
cool finish.
I just want to say again that Senna McLaren livery looked so good.
Yeah. McLaren had a special
Man,
livery.
that looked good on track.
Yep, it was Senna's colors, so like kind of the Brazilian colors. It had a lot of yellow on it, blue, green.
Yeah. Wow, did that look nice?
It was a really nice livery.
Just keep it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just keep that livery.
One of the nicest liveries I've seen. It's so much better than the normal McLaren livery.
It really is.
It's so much better.
The normal McLaren livery, it doesn't. They say like, oh, see, it's like the older car, and it's like you have an orange triangle.
Yeah.
That doesn't make, or you have a chevron.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it look the same at all.
No, their current livery, like, it's not bad or anything. It's just kind of boring. Is all.
But that one was very lively. I liked it.
Yeah.
You need more yellow race cars.
Yeah, yellow's a cool color.
It is.
I miss Renault for that reason. I know they're Alpine now, but I did like Renault's liveries. I don't like Alpine's liveries all that much.
No, quit it with the paint.
Yeah, looks really bad.
Quit it with the paint. That's all I'm asking.
But Renault, I always actually quite liked a lot of their liveries.
Yeah. The other good thing too, so Leclerc got a new engineer for Imola.
Yes.
For the last race.
Yes.
And that looks to be a pretty dang good relationship already.
Yeah,
I didn't even know.
I like this guy.
I like the guy. There's a sense of humor established, obviously.
Yep.
And much better at communicating.
Yes.
Now I'm like,
compared to Xavi.
I'm like, holy crap! How did they keep him with that guy for this long?
Yeah. So his previous engineer, there's a lot of memes about
19,
him. It's hard to get
20,
into all
21,
of it, but
22,
like
23.
the previous guy that you'd always hear on the radio with Leclerc was not. He's a bit of a disaster. He was very slow at responding to things. There was clearly some communication issues half the time.
Yeah.
But like this new guy at Imola was just complimenting Leclerc nonstop, like every 2 seconds.
Not in a weird way.
Not in a weird way, but it was
just
funny.
Like, it was.
Like,
it's just like, this is good. This is great. And then then he'd be
this
like,
pace is good. You're doing a good job. Good job, Charles.
It was funny hearing it all chopped up close together, but it's like it's over a 2-hour race.
It was spread out over the race, but like still all chopped up together. It's just like you're just hearing him come over the radio repeatedly being like, "Good job, Charles. Good job."
But then it was accurate too. He's like 3 and 4 look good, more on the exit of 6.
Yep.
This is great.
Yep.
And then he'd get off.
He's very direct too, compared to Xavi. Like Charles at one point in Monaco was like, I have more pace.
Basically,
I have like 4 seconds of gap that I can pull. He didn't. Yeah, he said, "Do you want to know the margin?"
Yeah.
And his new race engineer came on, and he was just like, "Nope, we don't care."
Yeah,
and
basically.
He's like, "Are you?"
He was like, "Nope, don't say."
He said we don't care.
Oh, he said you don't care?
He said we don't care.
That.
He said we know we don't care.
Yeah, and then Leclerc was like, "That's rude."
Yeah, he's like, "That's rude."
In a joking manner.
Yeah, it was quite funny because he was like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "We are sure."
Yeah.
And he was like, "That's rude."
But that was cool, and a pretty interesting look at like the difference a race engineer can make in the way they communicate.
Yeah, I think
I knew the stuff
change.
I knew the stuff like. You'll hear drivers freak out when their race engineer talks to them in the wrong section of the track.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to focus and then listen.
Yep.
But quite a difference.
Yeah, that should be a good change, hopefully.
Also, I like the Monaco anthem live.
Yeah.
Just kind of a fun meandering. It sounds like an old classical piece or something.
Yeah, it does. It does. A lot of European anthems. Maybe one of
Vivaldi's Seasons. Something like that. You know?
Yes.
Something along those lines.
Yes. Quite elegant.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, if I'm gonna go to the Monaco Grand Prix someday, I need to get cultured.
It's the most expensive Grand Prix on average to visit.
I know, and it's probably the worst. I was looking at the grandstands, and those were packed.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is definitely the worst one to watch.
Yeah, probably.
By the way, too.
I genuinely think in terms of like actual viewing experience,
that one's the worst.
It might be the worst. What do you think the best would be? Where you can actually see a good amount of the track. I think there's no, probably not.
Spa.
I don't know. You think Spa? there's so much of the track you can't see. And it's such a long track, you're not really seeing the cars that often.
Yeah, but you can see them go through Eau Rouge. That's kind of all that matters.
I disagree. I don't think Spa would be the best viewing experience. I disagree with that.
I think being at the top of Eau Rouge and seeing them come right up at you.
Very often raining. It's like an extremely long track. You'll only see them come through every
2 minutes.
2 and some odd minutes.
What do you think would be? I mean, Monza has super high speed.
Monza has super high speed.
But you don't see them. I mean, you have shorter laps. You see them twice as much.
I think there's a chance something like the Red Bull Ring would actually be one of the best.
The grandstands aren't really near the good parts.
Maybe.
Grandstands mostly on the front straight.
Yeah. I don't know. The Mexican Grand Prix actually might be one of the best for viewers.
Being in the grandstands when they come
the little inside section
and through the two grandstands. That could be cool.
Yeah. Maybe Mexico.
That'd be cool. What else is there?
I, for a split second, wanted to say the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah,
but then I was like,
there's too many trees.
Not. Yeah, that's what I thought afterwards. I was like, there's too many trees.
I'm going to go to the Canadian GP, hopefully next year or the year after that, but I know exactly what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
I know the location basically I'll sit. I know what I'll see, but anyhow, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Just my favorite parts are the parts where they're sending it through a difficult area, and you often don't get to actually see that happen.
Yep.
So anyways, but the Canadian Grand Prix is this weekend, as in, if we get this up in time, it'll be this weekend. It's a triple header.
Is it?
Or wait.
Are you sure about
now,
that?
Hold on. No, I'm not.
I don't
right
know if
about
it's
that
race
at
week
all.
again, man.
I'm not right about that at all.
I'm not confident in that. I can't back you up on this one.
Yeah, it is the Canadian GP. June 9th. Sorry, not this weekend. Next weekend.
Ooh, that makes more sense.
I thought it was a triple header for some reason.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure about that.
My bad.
Okay, so not this weekend, the next weekend after. Yep. Depends when we get this episode up anyways. Sorry, I'm sometimes a bit slow with editing. I've got a lot of
we have lives.
Okay?
All right?
Yep.
Back to berating our listeners. We
better things to do.
Have better things to do and have lives. So you just wait patiently for every episode and then watch it. The entirety of it.
Whenever it's ready.
Whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
Just be like a baby bird waiting in the nest, hungry, complaining. But then, when Mama Bird comes by, appreciate the worm slop that you are given.
Yep.
I stand by those words. This has been The Drain, guys. I'm Noah.
I'm David.
And that was the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah. We'll see you for Canada.
Woo. Yeah.